I'm very pleased and honored to be joined today by the Right Honorable Luisa Diogo, former Prime Minister of Mozambique, and the Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, Dr. Vera Songwe. And we're really excited to have this opportunity. Thank you both. Another related institutional inefficiency and weakness is the issue of corruption. We've seen, unfortunately, some extraordinary diversion of COVID funding in a number of countries around the world. It seems that this practice is sort of institutionally accepted many places as just it's a way of life, it's a way of doing business. And the media publicize it, people know about it, government leaders complain about it, and yet nothing really seems to happen. At the end of the day, it continues. Do you have any idea about, is there a silver bullet? What can government do to stop corruption in government? Because at the end of the day, besides the cost effects of siphoning off public resources, it erodes the institution of government.
Transparency is the solution. How can we ensure that budgets are more transparent? There's a lot of work with the open government platforms that have been, OGP is doing a lot of work on transparency and trying to understand, at what point do you start the transparency process? And it does take two to tangle, because, a lot of the sort of private companies with whom we do business on the continent will say, oh, we don't want you to expose this contract because it's a private contract, so very difficult. And essentially that nurtures the corruption, because it's only when something goes wrong and the contract becomes public that you realize that it should never have been signed in the first place. And so my sense is, as we ask for transparency, and I think one thing that gets lost very easily in this conversation on corruption is how much citizens across the world, not just in Africa, demand, including from multilateral development agencies, when the loan is, and that's why, some of the IFIs now have open platforms, and the day a loan is approved at the board, you can go on the internet and read it and understand exactly where the resources need to go. We need that across foundation resources, private resources. That kind of transparency, I think, will begin to address the issue.
So corruption is intolerable, and I think tolerance zero is recommended, because it's the only way for us to use better the resources, the small amount of money that we have, and also build and rebuild and consolidate the confidence that we have with our international partners and with our taxpayers in our own country. So
now most countries are now sitting with a situation of small budgets and big debts and little prospect of external support. What would your strategy for economic recovery look like in those circumstances?
Personally, I think we need to balance more and more. Balance social sectors with the public, with the productive sector. What kind of investment that I need to do in order to influence the investment that should come from the nationals and from the foreigners? And then look to the social sectors. What kind of players that I have in the social sector? What kind of players I have in education? What kind of players I have in the health sector? What kind of combination and partnership I can do? Because the major role of the state, it is to be in these health sectors, education and health. Health now is fundamental in terms of priority, and we need to look to the health, not only for recurrent expenditures that are going to be huge now, but looking also to the investment, to the future. And look to this issue of partner. Be creative and innovative. How to make it happen. How to fulfill our role and how to move as fast as possible to the objective. sometimes I will not be in that mile number 20 by the year 23, but I can be in the year 24. What's important is that I need to do it in a wise manner, in a balanced manner, in a sustainable manner. Otherwise, if I don't have the courage of looking to my plan and budget in a serious manner, I will not have courage of cutting. I will not have courage of prioritizing. I will not have courage of choosing. I will say, I can do everything, or I'll try to do everything. No, you'll never manage to do everything for the time being. For the next 2 years, you will not have the same conditions. But you can make 2021 more predictable, more balanced, with clear priorities, courageous decisions, with more transformation, and with rules that are tight in terms of combating corruption, having a procurement that is serious and explore the scale, and be effective and efficient in what can be done for the future.
Look, three things. I think, and in some sense, I always say that debt is not bad if you use it well and if you buy it sufficiently cost effectively. So unfortunately, we are not in that situation now on one of those things, at least, on the cost of debt. The cost of debt is extremely, extremely onerous and actually prohibitive for many African countries. And I give the example, the debt to GDP of Germany is at about the same level as the debt to GDP of South Africa. However, Germany pays 48 basis points for its paper, South Africa 972. So even if they were all enacting the same policies, in 4 years, South Africa will be in trouble and Germany will be coasting along. And so we do need at the international level to address that problem of how we get additional resources that are affordable to countries. And so that's one important priority for countries as we look forward. The second one, of course, is in the absence of external aid and in the absence of some external support, also, unfortunately, remittances have dried up, FDI is drying up, but we have to start thinking, how can we bring it back? And so the first thing is to, one, with the confines of the resources that you have, and you see that on the continent, a number of countries have continued to put in place good macroeconomic reforms, have continued to take away onerous and not well-targeted subsidies, have continued to improve their business environment by, how long it takes to register a business or the sort of customs processes. So I think working hard to see how you can attract private investment is going to remain a priority. And that I think needs to happen. And this is where government comes in again, because when you look at sort of even an energy investor, if I were an energy investor, Africa is desperate for energy and investment wants to come because the return is good. You need the Minister of Finance to decide that they want to give you a guarantee. You need the regulator in the energy sector to agree that they'll give you cost-reflective prices. You need the Minister of Lands to be able to give you the permit for your land construction. You need a series of government agencies capable of working together to have that goal realized. And I think that's one of the things governments today need to focus on is, what are the 3-4 big investment decisions that we want to make? And then how do we bring all of government to the table to make that happen? And I think the sooner and the easier we can do that, that will be, I think, an important thing. The second one, of course, is because of the crisis, we're seeing a weakening of or need to re-strengthen health and education services. We cannot afford to let the young people stay out of school eternally. So I think some conversation now about how we bring back education, how we stand it back up. And then again, you need the school buses are run by Ministry of Transport, the health service by health and education delivered. How you bring those, different ministries again together to make decisions about maybe it's only the last grades that go to school and we can spread out the school system so there's no contamination. I think those kinds of decisions where you don't forego investments in the future, your health and your education, by making decisions today that begin to build back will be particularly important. And finally, we know that with crises like this, inequality can be very, very quickly exacerbated. And if you don't take care of it today, it leads to crisis tomorrow. So how you stand up some kinds of social protection programs that allow not for, and we see that in the United States, not for the kinds of transfers that, you know, allow for people to, you know, go off and spend a lot, but with resources they cannot afford. But I think social protection programs that allow for creation of value, you know, rural roads, building up schools and things. So creating some investment while you ensure that, you know, the vulnerable still have an income, can put a meal on the table and take care of their health. I think those three things were first, bringing back foreign currency, bringing back your investments, and ensuring not everywhere, and not trying to create new ideas. I think the first thing will be to just stand up the good ones that already exist. Secondly, ensuring that, you know, you can make sure that particularly health and education are stood up, or additional new investments in sort of your human capital are protected. And then finally, reducing any kind of semblance of a creation of inequality or a new huge group of poor people with new social protection programs.